Hey.
Hey, we're recording. Let's go. All right, let's get this show on the road. Bring some folks in here. All righty. Well, welcome, folks, to our fifth, sixth center seminar. So excited to be with you remotely this evening. For participants who are joining, if you would just keep your camera and your microphone off, that would be tremendously helpful as we're recording this. And also the popping in and popping out can be really distracting. For those of you who are watching this after we record it, welcome to this recording and good evening or good morning or afternoon. My name is Thomas Becker. I'm an admission counselor here at Center and a 2015 Center alum. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the liberal arts and med school conversation we're going to be having tonight. I have three of my esteemed colleagues here, dear friends and awesome coworkers. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, first to Annie and then Anne and Gigi, and then we'll get this thing kicked off. So over to you, Annie.
All right, thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Annie Murphy. I'm a Center alum. I have worked in the admission office for a number of years. And I think my connection to the content we're going to talk about today, my sister who went to Center is a physician now. So I'm going to offer a little bit of feedback about that. So nice to see you guys today. Thanks.
Awesome. And my name is Ann Evans, and I'm also a Center alum. I've worked at Center for about 5 years now, and I'm excited to talk a bit about this today. I have a number of friends, as I know we all do, who went to Center and then went on to med school afterward. So excited for you and your interest in this path. Center sets students up really well for success in medicine. So it's going to be great.
For sure. And I am Gigi Gray. And you guessed it, I also am a Center grad. So I graduated in 2018. This is my second year working in admission. And I have a sort of different connection to the pre-med track at Center, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. But excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. So the first thing I think we should talk about is this whole idea of liberal arts, right? Like you can major in pre-med or some allied health related field at much larger institutions, ones that seem to have very robust and comprehensive programs. But we do things a little differently and with a different degree of intention, perhaps. And Annie, I wonder if you could talk about what it means to be a liberal arts or liberal arts and sciences institution.
Great, sure. I'd be happy to talk about that a little bit. So the liberal arts and sciences tradition, I think one of the things I like to always point out is the origin of our name, that name liberal arts. So if you think about the word liberal, yes, of course it has political connotations, but really it's coming from the Latin root for freedom, so liberalis. So it's coming from this notion that a person in society should have certain knowledge to be a person kind of in our society. It's wonderful to have kind of freedom also in the curriculum. So you can have freedom to choose a variety of paths. One of the things I love so much about Center and other liberal arts and sciences institutions is that you don't have to be a specialist from day one. In fact, we don't really want you to do that. Of course, you're going to naturally have those things you're interested in, your strengths, the things that you want to pursue. But I think the beauty of a liberal arts institution is that you are going to, yes, develop expertise in a particular area, but not at the expense of really enriching yourself across disciplines. So that's a little bit about, I think, the beauty of liberal arts.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good segue there. And especially thinking about this liberal education, right? Like one that is very open, one that allows for a lot of different options. At a place like Center, one of those options is medical school. Center doesn't have its own med school associated with it, but that's a pairing that we are really intentional about fostering and advertising and making sure is a really well-developed program. So Gigi, could you talk a little bit about how those things kind of tie together, this very intentional, relatable education with one that is very rigorous and demanding and, pardon the pun, but very clinical in its approach to how it's going to educate people?
Yeah, I definitely think sort of the academic rigor of Center, right, of course, will prepare you to go on and be successful in medical school, but also you're able to learn how to study and learn how, like, your best study habits, so you can be successful in medical school. And then also, I think outside of the classroom, you're able to foster relationships with people, whether you're forming a study group or you're interacting with a professor. I think that really prepares you to go on to the next step and continue that into medical school, which I think is a great tool that a small liberal arts school definitely helps and prepares students to do, for sure.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And just a reminder to folks, please feel free to use the chat feature in here. If you have questions, we're going to be getting into a little more nitty-gritty stuff in the next few minutes. So if you have questions about center-specific stuff, general liberal arts and med school stuff, feel free to throw them in there, and we'll either get to them in the moment in conversation, or we'll get to them with a little Q&A time at the end. And so thinking about this, now we went from liberal arts and sciences to how do the liberal arts really tie in with med school? I wonder if you could talk about what makes Center special, right? There are literally hundreds of liberal arts schools and many pathways that people could choose in order to set themselves up for success in med school, right? I don't think any of us would claim that Center has a monopoly on, the right recipe, but I think our recipe is a pretty good one. I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit.
Sure. And if I miss anything while I'm talking about it, other folks feel free to jump in. But the things that come to mind for me, we are the top ranked school in the state of Kentucky for academic rigor. So we do that type of preparation arguably better than anyone else in the state of Kentucky, as well as in the Southeast. We're a top rated school, but then the quality of our instruction, I think, really sets us apart. If you're familiar with the book Colleges That Change Lives, one of the biggest reasons we're highlighted among the 40 or so liberal arts schools in the country that are included in that book is our faculty and their devotion and dedication to teaching. So all of our classes are taught by full-time faculty members who have their PhD in their area. So we don't have any teaching assistants at Center, but they have chosen to teach at Center partially because they know about our academic environment. And we also have this great reputation for faculty who love to teach. And so that attracts faculty members who first and foremost want to be in the classroom with students, engaging with them and getting to know them and teaching them to really great depth about the different subject areas. So those things come to mind for me. I'd say also our placement rate that we have for medical school, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think around last time I checked, it was about 85% of first-time applicants are admitted to med school on their first try. So students who may not make it in that first try might apply again, but 85%-ish getting in on the first try is pretty remarkable. So our preparation is really strong, and I think that our med school advisors work with students one-on-one to talk about which med schools could be the best fit for them. Are they wanting to practice in their home state after school, or are they wanting to go to a new place? They're going to be able to talk through all of that with students. And one more thing that comes to mind is study abroad. Students who are going the pre-med route at Center are still able to study abroad. A lot of schools do not have that opportunity for students, or if they do, it might slow down their rate at which they're going to graduate. But at Center, you are guaranteed that study abroad experience. The biggest one that a lot of our med students do is Glasgow, but I can think of a number of my friends off the top of my head who did different study abroad programs and went on to med school after Center. So yeah. That's kind of
that's really that was really excellent, and you hit on many things that we're going to tease out a little more. The first one I want to tease out is that quality of preparation, right? Like the level of advising that we have, the quality of course selection that we have. Annie, could you speak a little bit about how we set students up for success in that application process, but also noting some of those places where we do send students? I think that liberal arts schools might have that reputation for keeping people close to home because a lot of people don't know about the school. So, and that's really not the case for Center. So can you speak a little bit to where folks head? And then Gigi, if you can jump in on the tail end of that too.
Sure. Yeah. So to address that kind of the first part, as far as how are we doing the advising process? How are we doing that preparation? So so it starts as early as you want to opt in to get some additional advising. So basically, I want to clarify something that some people think about pre-med as a major. At Center, it's not a major. So it kind of functions kind of parallel or kind of alongside your major. So the idea is you have advisors who are experts in understanding the pathway to getting to medical school or to a variety of other health professions. So maybe you want to become a nurse practitioner or go into veterinary medicine, whatever it might be. We have this team of specialized professors. And so their job is to say, hey, you think this might be something you want? Let's back you up. Make sure the first year you're taking the kinds of courses that will keep this as an option for you. And then they help you kind of get connected to other things that are going to help you discern, is this in fact the path I want? Because that is a big part, I think, of the advising process, is helping students continue to get to know their strengths, their real goals for their future career. So they help with that. And then they might get you plugged into internship opportunities, research opportunities, these really hands-on things that confirm, yes, this is the path I want to be on. And then if you end up applying and pursuing the application process, say for medical school or vet school, whatever it might be, you have those additional layers of experience in addition to fantastic preparation in your courses. And whether we like it or not, just talking about entrance exams, I think that's something that's important to think about. The MCAT is the one everybody knows about for medical school. You do well on the MCAT if you have mastered the content. And I think that is one of the ways that Center students really shine. I know my sister talked about this, that she said, when she was taking organic chemistry, for example, she wasn't in a class of 400 students. She was in a class of 14 students. And so she was able to really master that content that was then later tested for the MCAT, leads to better performance, leads to better scores, can lead to that outcome that you've been hoping for. So, and speaking of those outcomes and kind of what those might look like, many students do end up pursuing medical school in their home state, just because it's a lot cheaper. It's a lot more affordable to kind of go to your in-state place. But we do have students who are applying to private medical schools all across the country. We have students at Dartmouth, at Vanderbilt, Johns Hopkins, some of these names that we all know, they're really, respected programs. So they're all out there. So.
Well said. Gigi, what do you have to add to
Yeah, for sure.
that synopsis?
And you sort of alluded to this a little bit, but I would say students at Center are in a fortunate position because we do have a 10-to-1 student to faculty ratio. So students are really getting to know their professors that will be writing their letters of recommendation, or establishing a relationship with the professor, and they're doing hands-on research that really enhances their application into medical school. So I would say they're in a very fortunate position there in terms of the quality of relationships with professors at Center. And of course, people know of like the UK, U of L, University of Cincinnati, medical schools, like they know us, we know them, but we have students, as Annie said, at Emory, BU soon, Boston University soon, Stanford, things like that. So I think the quality of preparation really prepares students to go all over the country and they're prepared to succeed because, as Annie said, they've mastered material. They know how to study no matter where they are. And the experiences that they've had at Center will benefit them throughout their life, no matter where they end up.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, especially when thinking about that quality of preparation, that intentionality with relationship building. Um, and this is here's a plug question. Um, at Center, I think we pride ourselves on providing a wide variety of academic opportunities to students interested in pre-med, but that doesn't necessarily lock you in to a medicine related major. And one of the things that I think Center is very proud to be able to do, but also is in keeping with its mission, is you don't need to be a seemingly related major in order to be a pre-med student, right? So, and we can all think of these examples of people who we know. I know Spanish majors, French majors, economics majors, history majors, music majors, all of whom were pre-med. So the way that pre-med is going to function is, as Annie said, is as that parallel track, right? It's going to be extra advising. It's going to be a checklist of courses that med schools are expecting you to see, but is not going to be the thing that necessarily dictates or dominates your academic experience. We want students to be able to have that wide variety of options and to pursue an academic discipline and a vocational track that's of interest to them if they want to. Naturally, most of our students are going to gravitate toward the sciences just because it fits in well with the major and with the career field they're choosing. But having that flexibility, roughly a quarter of students are, is that right? A quarter or so are
Yeah.
not in a science related major. And I think that's really cool that we're able to do that and foster that. And again, not going to interrupt that 4-year graduation rate. We're real big on that 4-year hard stop. And that's the academic take on this, right? But there's a lot more to a college experience than your academic experience. I think Center folk are very fond of saying more learning is going to happen outside the classroom than in the classroom. And there's a perception that if you're a med student or a pre-med student, that might not be the case. But at Center it is. And I wonder if you could talk about, what can you do? You already mentioned study abroad. You're not limited to the Glasgow program. I know folks who did Strasbourg or Merida, Mexico. Lots of options to study abroad, but what are those other ways where students who might have that really demanding pre-med track get involved? Are they limited? Hint, they're not. But I wonder if you could speak to that a little more.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. They are not limited in terms of the things in which they can get involved in at Center. So Annie was actually looking at crunching some numbers for us before this to help us prep, which is great because I think that you can talk about things all you want, but to have the data to back it up is really interesting and helpful and says, hey, this is actually happening in real time. So we have more than 50% of our pre-med track students who are participating in a sport at Center. About 78% of them are in Greek organizations. I can think of many who were in things like student government and diversity student union and different community service-based clubs on campus as well. And about 90% of our pre-med students participated in at least one scientific research project during their 4 years at Center. So there's lots and lots of different ways to get plugged in. And I'll just add, kind of looping back, connecting what we were talking about a second ago and this, the more I hear from grad schools about pre-med routes, the more I hear that they are looking for students who actually have that liberal arts background and who have knowledge that scoops beyond kind of that traditional science-based curriculum. So to have a liberal arts background or to major in something outside of the typical major, and then to have all these involvements and those study abroad experiences, all of it coming together to create this cohesive and really compelling undergraduate experience can only serve students really well in med school. But yeah, you're not limited at all. You will have to work hard, like all Center students. They study pretty hard, but it's a super supportive environment. Students like to see each other succeeding. Faculty are rooting for your success as well. So yeah, plenty of ways to get plugged in and to get involved. Absolutely.
If I could
Gigi.
add to that,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with everything that Anne just said. I just really love that students aren't limited because, I mean, students might have a passion for like history, and I would hate for someone to have to give up that passion because they have to choose a certain track at center. So I really love the flexibility of being able to take all the prerequisites for medical school while also still majoring in something that you're really passionate about and you really enjoy learning about. And then in terms of sports, I've heard of a lot of athletes that say they do better during their season, like studying and time management wise. And I don't know how true that is. I mean, for myself during my season, it definitely was the case. But I think things that you take or learn in the classroom, you can learn on the field and things like that in terms of time management and endurance and sort of tenacity really applies to all aspects of your life. And you can really see that reflected in an applicant for medical school for sure.
Sure. I think Center takes a lot of pride in its med school preparation, and our faculty take a lot of pride in it, right? Like, Anne, you mentioned this, of the things that Center is most associated with, it's quality faculty, our study abroad program, besides all of the, great academics, beautiful campus, right? Those things that are real touch points for us, I think, find this really happy meeting place in our pre-professional programs, and especially in pre-med. We are an institution that is recognized for academic rigor, for academic quality, and for quality outcomes. And Annie, I wonder if you could speak a little more about, in looking at Center's pre-med program, what makes it special, right? If we're trying to convey to someone, and this is kind of like the question I asked Anne earlier, but what is that special spark that we have that other places don't necessarily have, and in thinking about, your sister or, the countless students that we have collectively seen come through here, like what, if you could bottle what makes a Center pre-med student good, and let's take this around the horn too, because I'm curious what you all have to say. But Annie, kick us off.
Sure. Well, I have two answers to that. So one
all
of
right,
the
you
things
are allowed
I think,
to have two.
Okay, great. So part of, I think, that special sauce that you said. So one of the things that we do at Center that is part of the advising process is have a very, very intentional recommendation process for those students who are seeking medical school. So if you apply to medical school, it's normal to submit a recommendation, right? You ask a professor for a letter of recommendation. That's pretty standard. But at Center, what our advisors do is they actually solicit a series of recommendations for you. So you will have a couple of professors, maybe a coach, maybe it's a staff member that you worked with closely, maybe it's a member of the admission team. And so that when your application goes across the desk to that admission committee, what they get is a really multi-dimensional sense of who you are. And I know those of us who are on the screen right now who do the work that we do, we know that when you encounter an applicant that feels like a whole well-rounded person, that's the kind of person you really want to see on your campus. So I'll just say that one thing then, and I'll let other folks kind of chime in about that.
Cool. Gigi, over to you.
Yeah, I would add probably the experiences that students are able to have at Center and how they sort of tie into really everything. So during a study abroad experience, if a student has an internship, they're able to talk about that in their application. To give you an example, I studied abroad in Mexico for a semester, and I had an internship in a clinic, and I can talk about that on an application. And that experience is something that not everyone gets to do, because not everyone gets to study abroad, not everyone gets to work in a clinic while they're abroad. So really comparing, U.S. healthcare to Mexican healthcare, I would say is something that not a lot of students get to do. So just the experiences that students are able to have at Center, I don't think are happening at other institutions as much as we would like to see, but I would say Center students are definitely fortunate for that.
Yeah, for sure. Anne, what's the last ingredient of our special sauce?
It's tough. This is not something that is as measurable, but I I'm going to start broad and bring it in. I feel like at Center, a big thing that we emphasize is community and kind of a service leadership mentality. And you see that being taught and implemented, whether it's in the classroom and discussions that happen, or if it's on the athletic fields, or if you are in one of your organizations. There's a big emphasis here on lifting others with you and bringing other people up with you. And I think that spills over into all of our students, but that includes our students on the pre-med track. Again, whether that's students who are wanting to go to med school or veterinary school or to be physical therapists, whatever it might be. I think that even if they come into Center and they're already thinking about that and they're like, this is how I want to help people, I think that their 4 years at Center really lets that desire to help and serve other people flourish. I think that you get plugged into this community, and then, I don't know, it's just kind of contagious. And I think that the desire to really to help other people is true and genuine for our students when they leave. So.
Agreed. And that's a really like quality observation and also pervasive theme. I think like with all of these things we've been talking about on Tuesday nights, like one of the most significant things is that all boats rise mentality, right? I think that Center, in terms of competition, is very much a non-competitive place when it comes to competing with other people for grades or slots. There's a really high degree of celebration and a really high degree of collaboration here, in a way that a lot of schools that look like Center and act like Center and appear like Center don't really have figured out to the extent that we do. I think that's something that we take pride in, and especially in a competitive field like an allied health related one, right? Like that's, you know, in thinking about competitive slots, I mean, holy cow. But I think we do that really well, and we prepare students to, you know, live and act in a world outside the Center bubble academically, but provide all of those really rich support structures while they're here too. I'll do one last plug for the Q&A box. So if folks have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to throw them in there. But I have one last question, and we'll go Gigi and Annie. Why should a student consider coming to Center if they are interested in pre-med? And keep it to like a couple sentences, just like, you know, if I came up to you on the street and I said, I'm interested in pre-med, why should I look at Center College? Gigi, what would you say?
Well, that is tough to put into a couple sentences, but I will say.
All right, take all the sentences.
I will say, just as I mentioned earlier, if you have sort of a passion for history or music or anything in high school that you aren't quite ready to give up, you can still continue that while still being successful and prepared well for medical school and have all these other experiences. And you're not sort of limited to what you can do at Center College. And these are things that we guarantee to our students, you know, having these study abroad experiences, having an internship or research experience, and also getting you out in 4 years. I think you're well prepared to be successful in a short amount of time, or in the correct time frame that you're supposed to be. And yeah, that's why you should come to Center. And
awesome. Sign me up.
That was like 10 sentences, but
I'll take it. Anne, what would you say?
Okay, this kind of came to mind for me earlier. I don't know. I think this might be geared especially for someone who's from out of state, and if they're talking about Center with friends and family near them, and if they scratch their head and say, what's Center? I think I would tell them that even if, you know, you or your friends have not heard of Center, I can guarantee you that your medical school in your state or whatever it might be, they have heard of us. So even if, you know, your best friend hasn't heard of Center, Harvard Medical School has. Or if, you know, your aunt hasn't heard of Center, Vanderbilt is very familiar with who we are. So I think that kind of, again, they recognize the rigor. These grad schools are familiar with the undergraduate schools that are really helping to formulate very strong pre-med students. And so they are familiar with us. So I think it would give you a nice boost when you're looking at med schools.
That's an excellent point. Also giving me some reverb to my own suburban Philadelphia experience of like center, what's that? But no, a really, really great point there. And I think those outcomes are trackable and measurable and really, really awesome. Annie, what would you say?
So I think that one of the reasons that you should choose center is because you, right now, you're thinking about the pre-med path. Let's say you're 17, maybe 18 years old. I think it's great. I think you should absolutely go with that dream and with that goal. But the truth is you might change your mind. You might discover something else that you're really, really excited about. And I think center is a great place because if you decide absolutely med school is for you or another health profession, we're going to help you get there. If you discover something else you're really excited about, we're going to help you get there too. And you can develop multiple parts, multiple dimensions of who you are. So.
Yeah. I ditto all of that. And Cole asked a really good question, which is going to tie into what I would say to a person who is interested in pre-med at center. And it's a really great question. Is there a social divide between pre-med and non-pre-med students? I think the thing that's really awesome about center is that it is really hard to make a divide when you're on a campus of 1,400 people who have learned to know and love the institution and really delve in deep. You know, I think that pre-med students, because they are involved in areas outside of pre-med, is what ties them in to all of their colleagues. You know, we have one dining hall on campus. We have one major workout facility. We have a sense of residence life that, you know, has 98, 99% of students any given year living right there with you. So you're going to be taking courses and getting involved in clubs and organizations and playing on teams and acting in plays and singing in choirs and, you know, standing next to the guy at the kiln, you know, blowing glass. And they might be a pre-med student and they very well might not be. I think that variety is such an incredible asset, that diversity of interest and of academic pathway choice. And I have countless friends who went the pre-med route, and I have countless friends who didn't. I think that's true for all of us on this call, right? Like, you know, it was a really quality program, and all of center's programs are going to be quality programs. We are you get out what you put in type of institution, and we make sure that as much as you want to put in, you're going to get out. You're going to get out even more. So I think that, you know, center is a really great place overall, no matter what your academic interests, no matter what your extracurricular interest, no matter your outcome interest, because it does have that high degree of flexibility and is recognized for its quality, both while you're there and when you get out. So I'll let my friends here sign off, and then I will close us out with one final thank you, but we'll go Annie and Gigi, and then farewell. So Annie, closing thoughts, farewell, whatever you want to say.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any other questions, your admission counselor is here to help students or parents. Just let us know.
Yep. Same thing. Thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate you taking the time. We clearly love center. We hope that you get to know center and fall in love with it too. But best of luck on your journey, whether you land at center like we hope you do, or if you land somewhere else. We wish you the very best of luck.
Yes, you guys took the words out of my mouth. Thank you for joining us tonight. Of course, if you guys have any questions, if you want to get plugged in with maybe a pre-med student or pre-med advisor, we're happy to do that for you. So please don't be strangers. We're happy to connect with you. Thanks for joining.
And thank you to my friends here on the call. So appreciate your time in participating in this panel. And I will add one final plug for getting in touch with your counselor, right? Like, we love center. Like Ann said, we would love to see you at center, but it is our first and foremost job to counsel you through this process. So if there is anything we can do to help as you navigate the college search as a student, as a parent, as a counselor, it is our job to assist you. It's not our job to sell you on Center, although we're very good at that. We want to see you find the place that you can call home. And for some of you, that will be Center, and for some of you, that will be some other great institutions. But we hope you learned something tonight, something you can take with you and add to your, I think of like that little fold out binder thing, like of all the college info. So feel free to keep that in your virtual file. Hope you can take that with you throughout your college search. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a shout. We are here and we are happy to help. Y'all take care. Have a great evening.
Bye.